I was thinking for some of you, or even maybe many of you, it might not be the first time that you hear our speaker speak, because I discovered yesterday that this is the 6th time that he's speaking at Learning Technologies, and we're very delighted that he's here again. Far and foremost, Dr. Itiel Dror, who is our next speaker, he's a researcher. He studies the human brain, mind, and cognition. His specialty is anything around human decision-making. I'm just simplifying things here, because the list of what he has researched is incredibly long. And I've looked at all the publications, and it's just a long list. So, you know, the research in itself, I think, is super fascinating and really important for our field. But what makes it even better is what Itiel then does is he takes the theoretical understanding of the human brain, cognition, and the mind, and translates that to really concrete and tangible ways to improve human performance in real-world domains. So that's, of course, you know, really, really critical for us as practitioners to get that these research-based insights so that we can make our practice more research-informed. I have I don't know how many notes where I was preparing for this intro and stuff, but then I thought, who wants to listen to me if we can listen to Dr. Itiel Dror? One more quick thing. Itiel is going to leave space at the end for Q&A, so we're going to leave 10 minutes at the end, so I just wanted to make that clear.
I assume my mic is on and everyone can hear me? Okay, thank you very much. I hope not to disappoint you. I'm very happy to be here and talk to you today, and I'm going to talk about what technology is doing to our brains and what does this mean for all our futures. We will leave time for questions in the end, but if you don't have time or you want copies of the slides, I put my email, and you're welcome to email me. And I also put a lot of the articles. I want to talk 150, by the way, articles. So I put them and others on my website. So if you want to read more details, there are papers on my website. I need to start off by saying that I'm not a learning and development or technology and learning expert, but I'm a cognitive neuroscientist. So I do research at the University College London about the human brain, and trying to understand how to transfer academic knowledge about understanding the brain and how the brain processes information to issues in the real world, and learning and technology is one of the things that I'm doing. I also need to emphasize that I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm a cognitive neuroscientist. Neuroscientists talk about chemicals of the brain and different parts of the brain, but that doesn't give any insight to understanding how people perceive information, how people store information, what impacts behavior. That is a cognitive level of understanding the mechanism, the architecture of the brain as it translates to human performance. Today we have a very short amount of time. I don't want to give anyone the illusion that in an hour or two or a day or a week we can really get into it. So today is just a taster to let you have a feeling of what I'm talking about and technology. So two issues come to my mind in technology and learning. The first issue is how technology can improve and impact how we deliver, how we develop, how we teach, and how we learn. The second issue has not to do with how we use technology for learning, but what we actually teach, the content of what we teach, and if that should change or not. So the first issue is more the instrument, the technology, versus the second issue is actually the content. As per the first issue of delivering technology, then technology is great, it's wonderful new capability. They work with the Air Force and using air-to-air combat simulation. I work with Meta, what used to be Facebook, on virtual realities and augmented realities. In healthcare, I work on interactive video, gaming with Orange, and the list goes on and on. A lot of great stuff and new ways for people to acquire skill and knowledge using these great technologies. And of course, learning is not only about acquiring information, but do they remember it? Because they learn, the next day they forget half of it. So the question is, how do you call them mental representations that are salient in the brain, that they stay there, and that they actually impact behavior? And this is, from my perspective, old stuff since I started in learning technology more than a decade ago to talk about these issues. And again, what I said a long time ago, that technology should not be the driver. It's the learning. The technology is subservient to that. And I have an article called, "It's not what you teach, but what they learn that counts." It's not what technology you use or how much the users enjoy it, but what did they actually learn? And learn also what did they remember and what it actually impacts behavior. What we call brain-friend learning, which is a concept that I've been pushing for a long time. And I have to say, it's been taken on board. You can talk to Stella and other people if you want to understand brain-friendly learning, that the learning has to be brain-friendly. It's important to understand, because when you have a technology and your company invests money and buys a tool of gaming or virtual reality, and you train people how to use it in your learning department, then it's misused. I was in America last week, so they say in America, I don't think it's a British saying, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So when you have this technology, you're going to use it when it's appropriate or not. And that is not brain-friendly, because it's not the human brain that is driving all of this. So all of this, I'm not going to be talking about today. If you're interested, you can see my keynote at Learning Technology. And if you see the video, it's on YouTube. I'm talking about it, and I'm making fun of learning technology because they changed it. Now it's called learning technology. When I was giving the talk, it was learning, and technology was in a bigger font and uppercase. And I was looking and laughing that they emphasize technology when it needs to be learning technology. So we do see a change. Now it's the same font. Maybe another 10 years, the learning will be bigger. But if you look at the video, I'm making fun as I'm speaking about it. And this is how it looked at the time. So I'm not going to be talking about any of this today, because I've talked about it before. I'm going to talk about totally new stuff that I've never talked about in learning technology or about anything that I did before. I want to take it to the next step and not talk about how to deliver brain-effective learning, but what do we need to teach people, given the human brain and given technology. So this is the second issue about what we're going to teach. Now, of course, what we're going to teach, what we need to teach people today and in the future, depends how do people think, how do people make a decision, what is the working environment that people work in today or in the future, and human performance, and what is needed in this new technological age. And of course, that has to impact what we teach people, and not only how we teach them. And of course, technology has already impacted the working environment, the cognitive skills, and the kind of knowledge that people need. And in the future, this is going to be much and much more impacted in technology. So we have to think about that from a cognitive brain perspective to determine what we need to teach people, so we don't teach people things that are really not applicable anymore. And I'm saying what we teach in a fundamental way. Now, many of you, and I don't mean to insult you, are far from the fundamental. For example, I see and I evaluate a lot of e-learnings and technology where they still teach people information they don't need. I worked with PT, so engineers work in the junction box, don't need to memorize because they have an iPhone, they can get the information. So there's no need to teach information that now people have with them on their iPhones, on their iPads, what we may have needed 10 years ago, which we needed to memorize. Why are we teaching people to memorize information that they can access anytime, anywhere? This is kind of the basic. You don't need me to tell you that. I think that's obvious. Even though I see e-learning, why would you teach some things to memorize when you don't need to memorize it anymore? I'm talking about something much more fundamental of what we're going to be teaching people these days. Before I continue, I want to say that technology is great. Don't think I'm coming and promoting for you to go to Amish, or I think technology is evil. It's wonderful capabilities and all great, but there is a but here. In my view, technology is actually making us more stupid, okay? This is my view. In many ways, technology is making us stupid. Everyone talks about how great technology is, and it is great. And I call this the paradox of technology. Many of you don't agree, and you don't need to agree. I'm going to challenge you today about that. So if you are big admirers of technology, you can stay, but I am going to put the case that technology is making people more stupid, and that means we need to teach them not only in different ways, but different content, because the brain has changed and is more stupid, and we'll have to clarify what that is, but of course far-reaching implication of the content, not of the delivery of the brain-friendly, but the content of what we're going to teach. Don't get angry at me. I do a provocative talk. I train a lot of police officers and medical doctors, and they get quite hostile. You're a relatively friendly crowd, and I don't want you to turn you to be hostile. Now, we can argue and we can debate, and you can agree with me or not, whether people are actually more stupid because of technology, and I need to explain what I mean when I say people are more stupid. But regardless if you agree with me or not, which is my opinion, maybe a matter of fact, I'm not sure when I'm moving to that, but it's a matter of fact that there's no question that technology has and will change the way people think, the way people talk, the way people communicate, the way people work. It changes how we conduct our life personally and in the work environment. And I would say more than that, it doesn't only change how we do things, it changes what we are. It changes human nature. Technology, I call it as evolutionary force. Technology is an evolutionary force, but in contrast to evolutionary force that shaped our brain over 10, hundreds of thousands of years and millions of years, technology in years, in decades, is changing what we are and who we are and the basic of human nature. And this, of course, is going to impact or should impact what we're going to teach people, because it's very clearly we need to rethink some of the fundamental things that we're doing if you want to. But again, I'm just going to provoke you and challenge you to think it's a new topic, a new horizon. The how is issue one. I'm going to devote today to issue two. So, the paradox of technology, we need to start understanding better the relationship, the cooperation, the interaction between human and technology, and they're getting very, very intertwined, and we need to consider it, and specifically in what are called cognitive technologies. Cognitive technologies are technologies that think with us, that think for us, that collaborate with the way we think. They're cognitive, they carry out cognitive operations and extend our mind. And you can see details in articles that I have on my webpage: cognitive technologies and the pragmatic of cognition, landmines and gold mines in cognitive technology. And I mentioned scientific article because it's not blogs, it's scientific articles published in brain and behavioral sciences and peer reviewed by other scientists. But the basic thing is that cognitive technologies are new technologies that are coming out that actually are involved in brain processes and doing thinking with us and for us that haven't happened before. as we have these cognitive technologies, we're creating what I call distributed cognition. In the olden days, not so far ago, humans had cognition, I have cognition, but now, because of technology, cognition is distributed between me and the technology, and between me and other people via technology. So cognition is now distributed, and this opens the door that is already happening, and we're going to see this expanding in the future, new modes of relationship and interaction between the humans and technology. The technology is going to be, and the cognitive technology, an extension of our mind and the extension of what we're thinking about. At a fundamental level, we can offload. At a more bigger level, we can cooperate, we can have a partnership with the technology, and on the third level, technology is taking over. So, offloading is when we use cognitive technology to help us, to support our cognitive processing, right? We offload off of that onto the technology some of the cognitive operations to take the load off of us. And here, the technology is subservient to us, is working in the shadow of our cognitive processing, and the human clearly is in charge of what is going on. And it decreases cognitive load, makes it more efficient by downloading, offloading some of our cognitive processes. Simple examples, when you store information on your computer or on something else, and to remind you, right? I don't need to memorize my meetings, my iPhone beeps 10 minutes before. I don't need to remember a lot of things because I put it on my iPhone or on my computer, and not only to store, but it reminds me. Again, there's a bit of loss of humanity because in the olden days, when someone emailed me, "Happy birthday, Itiel," I was happy. Now I program your birthday on my computer. I don't even know that my computer will send you an email, "Happy birthday," and whatever. I don't even know, I don't even remember, I just all automated. But this offloads a lot of the memory tasks. We can also talk about a calculator, right, on a very simple level, when we just do the operations on a calculator. The human is offloading tasks to save time and effort and cognitive resources on the technology, and it gives us a gain in efficiency. However, from my perspective, this is not a qualitative change in distributed cognition, it's a quantitative change. It's a good one, it's great. I don't have to remember stuff, I have a calculator and all the things we do. But it's very, very limited. So we're moving to the next level, which is a cooperation, when we have kind of a partnership between the human and the computers. And here, the computer, the technology, the instrumentation, whatever you want to call it, the AI, artificial intelligence, the cognitive systems, work side by side as partners, right? It's divided, the cognitive tasks are divided between us and the technology, and if it's a good cooperation, a good distributed cognition, the human and the technology don't fight with one another, and that happens when you do not do it correctly, but really you want them to complement one another. You want the technology to do things that the human cannot do, or is difficult, and vice versa. The human mind, the brain can do fascinating stuff that computers cannot do. A baby who's 1 day old can do things that the biggest and best computer on the planet are far, far from being able to do. So the human is a partnership, and a true partnership, both sides contribute. So the human still contributes significant things that the computer, the technology cannot do. For example, flying an aircraft. So flying an aircraft cannot be done by itself. The computers cannot fly aircraft, like driving cars, and the pilots cannot fly an airplane without a computer. this will change. In civil aviation, there's no reason to change because technology to turn it to autonomous aircraft is very, very expensive. Let's put the pilot and pay them a bit of money. But this technology is coming because of military aviation. In fighter planes, we want to take the pilot out. Why? First of all, weight. It's not that we have fat pilots, we can put them on a diet, but if you have a pilot, they need a cockpit, they need an ejection seat, they need oxygen, and all of this weighs a lot, and in a fighter jet it's very critical. And even more important, it limits what the aircraft can do by human physiology, and the pilots pass out because of G-forces and other stuff. If we take the pilot out, not only we save in space and weight, the aircraft, we can move it to do things that the human body cannot do. So this technology is developed. In fact, the next generation of fighter aircraft will be pilotless, and probably a decade or a few years later, this technology will get to civil aviation. But right now, aircraft cannot fly independently. There's a cooperation between the pilot and the technology on the aircraft, right? We're trying to match the relative strengths of the technology and the relative strengths of the human to divide the cognitive tasks that need to be trained. Now we're getting when technology takes over. So as we use more and more technology, still preserving some limited things to the human, but generally the technology is in charge. The important things are done by the technology, and the human retains some involvement and also some control. And the point is that technology is in the lead, and the human is subservient. The human is in the shadow of the technology doing its stuff. For example, breathalyzers of alcohol. In the olden days, we trained police officers how to determine if someone is under the influence of alcohol, the sobriety test, and a whole range of training. Now, we don't need to do it. They have a breathalyzer. The police officer still needs to calibrate it, administer it, make sure it's the right person. But the meaningful judgment is done by the technology, by the breathalyzer. There are things that are not alcohol that are impacting driving, and we do train police officers how to know if someone is under the influence of others. But when it comes to alcohol, the technology has evolved, and right now, that case technology is doing the vast amount of work when they stop you, or if they stop you, and they want to know if you're under the influence of alcohol, if you're above the limit. The human is kind of subservient in a way, because the primary work is done by the technology, and the human does ministerial tasks that they need to do. If you want to think of one domain, then think of driving a car, right? So if you want one example of all three of them, so if you talk about offloading, then lights, anti-lock brakes, right? You don't need to remember to turn the lights on when it's dark. When I learned to drive, I needed to remember, and I would flash my lights for cars who were driving at night and didn't have their lights on. Now you don't have to think about it. The car will automatically turn the lights on, turn the windshield light. Anti-lock brakes. Well, you know, if you learn to drive today, you don't need to learn that you should never press up brakes all the way, because in my time when I started before anti-lock brakes, it's very bad to lock the wheels because they skid. You have to press and unpress, press and unpress. Now, no, press the brakes all the way, and the anti-lock mechanism will optimize and release and open, so the car will stop as efficiently as possible under the circumstances. All of this and other tasks relieve the driver from having to remember a lot of things when they're driving, but the driver is still in charge. Then you have cooperation and partnership. So, you know, you have global positioning system, navigation software, and you put the postcode of where you're going, and GPS gives you different alternative routes. One is faster but longer, one is shorter but takes more time, one is traffic and one is scenery or whatever, and together you decide where and how you're going to drive to your destination. Then you're getting to the technology takes over. Self-driving car, autonomous vehicle. I was in the United States last week, and it's getting quite amazing to see industry more and quite frightening until we get used to it, to see cars without a driver getting more and more common and going in the streets. And here, when you have this, there's no driver. The technology takes everything, and sometimes you are the driver and you can override the technology, but the technology is primarily in charge. What is interesting already, to get to the what, think of how ignorant we are these days. As technology evolves more, we turn more ignorant. When they invented cars in the first year, you needed to know how the car operated. In fact, you have a box with all the spare parts, and you had to fix when they broke all the time. As the technology evolves more and more, the technology is doing it. We have no idea how the car works. We have no understanding. The same in photography. When you started to take pictures 100 years ago, you really had to understand about aperture and light and a lot of stuff. Now I just take my iPhone, it does everything for me. I have no idea. I'm quite ignorant. In fact, I'm getting more ignorant. I know less of the world around me that relies. And as the technology advances, this happens, of course, more and more. So, of course, all of this is much, much more complicated. First of all, as we go down and talk, for example, of cooperation, it depends the cooperation, right? So the GPS example depends where I'm driving. It depends on the circumstances of my knowledge and confidence. If I'm driving where I'm used to driving every day, I take the GPS as a suggestion. I've been driving with people who argue aloud with the GPS. Why are you telling me this? I'll go this way. And I'll override it more frequently. If I'm driving in a new city that I've never been before or not so familiar, I will follow the GPS more. So this kind of partnership is dependent on a lot of different factors. It gets, of course, complicated. And of course, those three categories that I talked about is a continuum. We don't offload partnership or give technology control. Even in the third one, technology, something has more control, a bit of control, the role of the human, and how we offload. So this is a kind of different points along a continuum. I'm just kind of simplifying things so we have some basic concepts so I can talk about the important issues. What I want you to do now, just for a minute, I want you to think of your industry, compliance, insurance, health and safety, whatever you do, and think of examples. It doesn't have to be in your domain. You can think in another domain or even your private life of this kind of technologies in your workplace. Some that you're just offloading, some that is corporation, and some that basically the technology is taken over. So does anybody have some examples? You want to give the mics maybe? Just want this from your domain. I want you to think about those concepts. Why don't I give you a few seconds and see if anyone has any examples with us for us.
Birthday calendar.
Birthday calendar right here. Birthday calendar.
And that is an example of what?
Now, first you had to always remember everybody's birthday, and now you put it in technology. And as you said, the third step is that technology will send an email automatically when somebody has his birthday.
That's a real good example. I gave it.
Yeah.
I gave an example which I didn't give, and preferably something from your domain, the domain where you're training people, whether you're training people how to sell, with a few hands up.
Genotyping and phenotyping. So I work with NHSBT. So when you do blood analysis, you do it through a machine. So it used to be that the scientists would go through and track all the genetics, but they've got that in a machine now, so they can read the analysis that the machine does and interpret the deeper level.
Yes, there's somebody over there. So I'll let you on it.
Spaced repetition. We used to send emails out to people at specific times to say, remember this or recall that or do that. Now we've got a platform that does it for us. We don't need to worry about it anymore.
Mine's really similar to yours, actually. I was just going to mention about learning management systems. I remember when I was in the armed forces teaching new recruits that I used to put a post-it note on my desk to state that these people needed to do their combat fitness test by a certain point. Now that I work for a financial services organisation, I get emails from the system that says, in 2 weeks you choose to do this learning, please make sure that you put 30 minutes in. And it'll give those prompts on, until they complete that learning. And I think that's a massive change over the years. Thank you.
So we'll give some more examples in a minute, because I'm going to ask you to think how stupid you are because of all of this, which I want to hear more. And again, we're a big group and we have a very limited amount of time, but we can really get into each industry and look how that changes and what that means about what we need to do. And again, if you want to read the scientific article, just go to my website. The impact of human technology cooperation and distributed cognition, offloading cognition into cognitive technology, distributed cognition, how cognitive technology extends our mind. And these are all long, boring papers. I wrote it, I know they're boring, so I'm just giving you the icing on the cake. So now we can start asking the questions that I want to ask, right? What technology, the question is what technology is doing to our brains, right? As we move more and more from we do everything ourselves, offloading cooperation to technology taking over. And we see that this is happening, and it's happening more and more and more. It's going down, and more technology and more cognitive technologies are developed. What is this doing to our brain, and what does that mean to learning? So this is the questions, that we want to spend days and weeks and years talking about. And why is technology making us more and more stupid? So there are many reasons for that. I'm going to give you a few for a flavor, and even those I'm going to scratch the surface. First of all, when it comes to the brain, use it or lose it, okay? It's a fundamental thing in neural plasticity. It's because of the dynamic nature of the brain. The brain is adaptive. The human mind is not a camera, it adapts. That's why we saw relatively intelligence. Now, neuronal plasticity, a topic for a few days, people all the time talk about the hardware, how neurons change, but it can also change the software. So neuronal plasticity is, sometimes you have recovery of the neurons, even if you have a stroke, but sometimes even if you are not recovering, the neurons are dead and will not change, the brain finds new strategies to do what it did. This is neuronal plasticity on the software level of the brain, not the hardware. And I want to go into it, but then we'll spend hours. But just a distinction between neuronal plasticity of the neurons changing versus they're not changing, but they change strategy, the software that runs on the brain hardware. So the brain is dynamic and very plastic, which means it adapts, and one of the adaptation, as I said, is use it or lose it. Let me give you examples. Memory capacity, right? So memory capacity has decreased. If you go back tens of thousands of years, before one of the best technologies ever, not the iPhone, literacy, reading and writing, that's been around for 5, 10, 20 years. Before literacy, imagine you couldn't write anything down. So you had to memorize everything. And human memory capacity has gone down because we don't practice memorizing. I bet most of you don't even know your own phone number. You have to look it up. So it's not only phone number. Imagine everything you did in your business, not only there was no phone 20,000 years ago, but your stock and what you're doing and everything, you couldn't write anything down. You had to exercise the brain. And literacy, technology, cognitive technology, literacy, the par excellence cognitive technology, we take it for granted, it hasn't been around for so long, really changes the brain's capacity, and we are not good at memory as we used to be before all of this. Parking. I used to be the best parallel parker on the planet. I would park really well. But then the sensors came out and this and that. And that's what I use today, but for whatever reason in the United States I had to drive a car that didn't have all this. If we got a more classic old car, I couldn't park anymore. What happened to I was very proud. First time I go in a small space, I couldn't again and again and again because I've relied on this technology. So my parking ability has, I'd like to say, diminished. It's been basically eliminated, right? We don't think as much as we used to think. Taking photos. The olden days, maybe some of you don't even remember, you had to buy a film with 12 or 36 exposure, pay money for it, take pictures, then develop it into negative, and then print it. And it cost like £1, £1.50 each photo. You would think twice before you took a picture because it cost money and you had limited film. You travel for a few months, how many can you carry? Now, the young generation, I'm living the fact that they never look at it, but they don't think what picture to take and consider. They just click it because the technology is quick and cheap and great. So they don't think about it. And if you don't think, you don't use it, you lose it. Statistical analysis, my PhD students, what do? They have a data set and say, okay, we'll do an ANOVA, or we'll do a regression, we'll do cluster analysis. They just do all that statistical analysis because it's a press of a button. Now, even when I went to postgraduate school, there were computers, but my statistical professor for the final exam had us compute it by hand. A week take-home exam, I spent 10 hours every day, it was 70 hours to do this. First of all, I understand the statistical procedure. When you just press a button and do a regression or cluster analysis, you really do not know what cluster analysis is, unless you compute it by hand and do it and you know really well what it is. But more important, in the olden days, when you had to spend a week to analyze something, you would think, should I do a cluster analysis, or should I do an ANOVA, or should I do a regression? You would think about it quite well before you went, now, oh, I'll do this. They don't think about the data because it's so big. They have SPSS, they press a button, they don't use it anymore. Mobile phones. Mobile phones are a great invention. I love it that my kids, when they're teenagers, they go out at night, they have a mobile phone. I can call them whenever I want to. About tracking them or not, we'll discuss that later if you want, because it's a complicated question. But the most important thing for me, I feel really happy that they can call me anytime if they need my advice or need my help. And I encourage them. And when they call me, I'm happy that they call me and ask me, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? I never tell them, don't call me, it's a stupid question. I want them to call me when they're stuck. But you know what? That's a problem. Because when I was 16 and 17, I couldn't call my mommy and daddy, and I got into some not simple situation, and I had to decide what to do. I developed decision-making, coping with this situation. There was no mommy and daddy and everybody on the phone to have advice. So I've really developed this skill, I hope, about thinking, making decisions. This new generation, no, they don't have to think about what to do because there's always advice. And I think it's great that they do that. And I encourage the kids, and I feel really happy. You know, Friday night, midnight, the kids are not back, 1 o'clock in the morning. I know they have a mobile phone, they can call me, and they call me, Daddy, should I do this? That's great, I'm so happy. But they're developing zero or very little coping mechanism in deciding what to do. And they're very weak in that because the technology doesn't enable them not to have to do that. So this is all, of course, making them stupid. That's what I mean by stupid, that they're not able, when they get to a situation later on, oh, I need to call mommy and daddy because I've never thought about it. I've never gotten out of this situation by myself. I was always told what to do. And of course, if you're in exactly the same situation, that's great, but this situation is different, and you haven't developed the skills to evaluate risk and decide what to do, and so on and so forth. Yes? So why don't you give me examples of how you, or better your kids, are stupid, or your co-workers that thinks now, because of technology in the workplace, people are not able, whether it's parking or memory or statistical or whatever, people are not as smart as they used to be in a way because the technology made us lazy, made the brain lazy. It's convenient, right? Now when we're talking about the brain, the same thing. You know, now they have all over London the scooter, the electrical scooter. I'm not even talking about cars. People don't exercise their legs if they're using electrical scooters. Muscles are also use it or lose it to some degree. So people will use a scooter all the time, or you know, I go to Disneyland and I see all the Americans on their small scooters. They're not walking because they're overweight, and the more they're overweight, the less they're walking, and it's a vicious circle. Here we're talking about the brain, not the muscles. We use it less and we lose those abilities. So now, if anyone is brave enough, and I say brave enough like yes minister when he wants to say, are you brave enough, of examples in your life or your workplace even better, where people are less capable of doing things because technology has made them lazy, has done it. And now if you pull the technology, they're going to be helpless and not going to be able to do what they were able to do 5 or 10 years ago. So if any examples of that would be nice.
I'm going to be brave. This one's in my personal life. Sat-nav. I learned how to drive a car after sat-navs came in. I have no idea how junctions work. When people say they live off junction 10 of the M25, I have no idea where that is in the world. It could be literally in Timbuktu. And I can't drive without a sat-nav, even if I know where I'm going.
Very good. Any other examples?
Yeah, I'm going to flip that slightly. So my first job was in a bar, and I could add up a round of 20 drinks in my head and get the change right. And now people can't add two numbers together. Not everybody.
Food and cooking, so there's things like Hello Fresh and Gusto. People are creative in cooking, or they'll order from Deliveroo or Just Eat.
Okay, I'd love to hear more examples, and you can email me because I'm collecting a library in how many ways am I more stupid and people are more stupid. But we don't have much more time, and I'm just warming up, of course. So think about it now or in the future. And indeed, we have evidence, not anecdotes about that you're talking about, how we have less power, less coronal capacity, brainwave, genetic intelligence, and all these declines are correlated to increase in technology and use of tools. If we look at the coronal capacity, we can go back 3.8 million years and see how the brain got bigger and bigger and bigger, and suddenly 10, 20, 30 years ago, 10, 20, 30,000 years ago, after 3.8 million, the brain stopped getting bigger and started to get smaller. When we talk about brain weight, we don't have that information so far, but we go back 70 years, 50, 60, 70 years, and we measure, we have measurements in Japan and the United States, where we see a very systemic decline in the brain. And again, this is very complicated, and there's a lot of references on the brain side and brain evolution, and here are some of the reference. My point is that we have this evidence of decline as we started to use language and tools and technology, and this is very important in terms of use it or lose it. We're talking why are people more stupid, and I said many reasons, a few. This is one. Let me say a few more very quickly. And then after I convinced you, you're going to think why we're more stupid, how it affects what we need to teach and how we overcome it. So let me get all of that and leave time for questions. So technology, iPhone, Wikipedia, the web came out. This is great, people are going to be smarter, they're exposed to a lot of information. Sorry for having the video, I have to stay awake here. Exposed to a lot of different views, how people are going to be smarter. Not! We get bubbles, right? I just find someone stupid like me with the same idea, and I can find them on the internet, and the 15 of us on the planet talk to one another and make us feel good. We have this bubble of stupidity, and rather being exposed to more information. Confirmation bias. Internet searches. I don't care what you search. COVID is real, COVID is a hoax, COVID jabs work or not, Earth is flat. Put whatever you want in Google, you will find it. You just have to go down, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 100. Put the most idiotic idea you can think of. I guarantee somebody agrees with you. And you just go down, Google. Not the first 5, 20. If you go down enough, you will find someone who will agree with you. So it enables you to do that. It enables you to be biased, right? To selective information and find information to what you already believe and want. Rarely people look at information, why am I wrong? Why am I stupid in what I think? They look for confirmation. They search on the internet. Yes, I found it, right? This is what people do. So the internet here is not exposing us to different points of view. We do research on that. For example, selective information sampling. Peter, friend of Mackenzie now, Dr. Peter was one of my PhD students, and we did this research. Again, it's on the, you need to buy a mobile phone, and you have to buy a mobile phone, A, B, or C. There are 3 mobile phones. One group, you can access reviews. So each one of them, A, B, and C, has a lot of reviews, positive reviews, negative that you have in Amazon. Another group, we give them information on the mobile phones, A, B, and C, and they make a preliminary decision which phone they want to buy. After they have a preliminary decision which they want to buy, we let them look at the reviews, the same data set in here, and then they can stay with the decision or not. You find a huge difference how they look at the reviews. The group that doesn't know they know it's a mobile phone, but know no features, they just have the reviews, look at the reviews to actually decide which phone to buy, because they're going to have to buy one based on the reviews. This group already decided which one they like, and then we monitor which reviews they're going to look at, how much are going to look at them, how long. Totally different from you, because they've already decided what they want, and they look at the reviews not to get information, but for confirmation bias. And we have all this research showing all these different elements. And of course, misinformation, right? False fake news. You would think that because of the internet, there's less false news, less fake news, people can read. No, the internet is a breeding ground for misinformation. It's never been more spread, misinformation. Everyone can write whatever they want. People don't think, not only misinformation. Nothing against Twitter, but I was giving a talk, and the CEO of Twitter was talking before me about deep and meaningful conversation on Twitter, right? Most of the things on Twitter, hey, hoo-ha! Everybody doesn't think, how many characters are you limited to on Twitter? I don't have a Twitter. It's not a deep conversation. Everybody can say anything about whatever they want, and you'll find someone who will retweet your stupid things that you're going to say. Try it if you have a Twitter. No, I don't want you to look back. Open a Twitter account with a fake name and write the most stupid thing and see how many people are going to put likes on it, right? You're laughing. I want to cry on that. So, as we move down more and more, if you remember this slide, as we move more and more down, this is going to happen more and more. It's happening already. And of course, impacts what we're doing, right? Impacts us and the brain, because the brain is doing this. So we're starting with a very bad situation. There's a lot of things to do. And then we offload. We have partnership. The technology is taking over, and I can put my legs up and relax, because the technology is doing the work. I don't have to do very much, right? So this is great. The technology is evolving, and it's happening, and it's going to happen more and more in the years and decades to come. And what does that happen? The human is getting bored from time to time in terms of what they're doing. And this brings a question of cognitive engagement and of vigilance, not in your training, but when they go back to the workplace, what problems it's going to cause. For example, if you look at Continental 3407, it's a plane that crashed in the United States. 50 people have died, and there was an investigation. The NTSB, the National Transport Safety Board in the United States, found that the technology on the aircraft to help safety is the cause of the crash, because the pilots are not paying attention as much as they used to monitor, because the technology is doing it for them, right? So this is a problem, and people die because of that. As the technology does more, we pay less attention, and bad things happen. In fact, they reviewed, in another case, 37 major incidents in aircraft, and found that 31 out of 37, nothing failed. It's a human was not vigilant because of the technology that was doing it for them. So the airplane, I just finished investigating a plane crash. I can't say too much about it, but the technology, the technology is going to say, terrain ahead, pull up before you crash. So I don't have to keep my eyes on right if the plane is going to crash or not. But then suddenly it happened and I'm not able to pull the plane up in time, and everyone dies in the accident, and so on and so forth. When you have driver cars, with autonomous, it's a totally perfect, great. But sometimes you have to monitor it, if the technology is not picking up a pedestrian. But if you sit for hours and hours and it's doing a great job, then you're going to be texting or watching a movie or daydreaming about something else. So of course, this is all a serious problem. Similar things with rail signal boxes. I finished last year a big project with network rail. So you have the signal boxing, making sure trains are not using the same track. The olden days, the human did everything, but there's more and more technology that's offloading, partnership. The technology is doing it, you just have to make sure there's no problem, but you're going to have a very big problem with that. The same thing with airport security. I'm very vigilant, you see, I'm paying attention. Second day, no bomb, no bomb, no bomb, no bomb. Third day, I'm going to work in airport security for 10 years, 20 years. How many bombs am I going to find? 0 bombs! Right? So you expect me to stay vigilant? Even if I'm motivated, the brain will not stay vigilant if the brain gets into this mode. Let me try something about this. So why don't I put something on the screen, and I want to quietly to count how many F's you can see here. How many times the letter F appear in this paragraph? Okay, how many of you see the 3 F's? Pick up your hand, pick it high. The 3 or the 4. Almost everyone sees 3 or 4. There are 6. Did I put the wrong slide, or are you blind? Really stupid. There are 6, right? Everybody sees these 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm happy you're taking it quite well, but you can't count to 6. We bring people into the lab, we pay them money. Every F, I'm going to give you 10 pounds. They're extremely motivated, and they don't see the 6 F's. This is a problem in training. The problem in training is not to teach them to identify bombs. You need that, and you need to motivate them. But the real problem, how do you train people to be vigilant? I'm aware of the time, right? And of course, this is a greater and greater problem. As the technology does more, we're lazy, we're paying less attention. So how do we solve it? The Dror technique of the terror of error. And we know people are not rational and people are emotional generally. So what does the terror of error says? What do they do in airport security? They do a system called TIP. It's unclassified. It's on the web of the US Transport Board. It's target image projection. So in the airport, it's very big machines because they have inside a computer with not real guns, but images of guns and bombs, and they will project it on the screen from time to time. So somebody comes to work and they go, no bomb, no bomb, no bomb. After a few days, I go and put it, and they don't see it because that's the way the brain is. And then I say, Eric, how are you doing today? Great. I said, can you roll back the film? Let's see what happened an hour ago. What is this? It's a bomb. Oh my God, the plane is going to blow up because you were thinking of, I don't know what. And I let him panic. I let him, piss in his pants a bit, emotionally. Before I tell him, no, it's not a real bomb. I put it in, and I'm going to put it in from time to time to keep them visions, right? You want to give them a memorable experience. You want to shake the brain from the freeze it's in. And technology is not the only reason that it can happen, but technology causes it much, much more. And this is a complex issue in training, of course. I do it at home too. I don't necessarily advise you to do it at home, but I have to teach the kids when they're young, don't open the door to strangers. This is an example to explain to you what the terror of error. Telling my kids, don't open the door to strangers, and explaining it is like telling you to count the F's or telling the security people to look for bombs. Even if you really do, if they're good kids, that's not how it is. That's not how the brain in human nature. So after I tell them and explain, so I don't feel bad before I give my terror of error, I go and I say, Daddy's going shopping. I'll be back in 2 hours. You remember? Yes, Daddy. Don't open the door to stranger. We know. They make fun of me. I go. I come back after 5 minutes. I put my hand to the keyhole. They say, who is it? I don't answer. Now they're good kids. They don't open the door. Who is it? I don't answer. 5 minutes. They can't help themselves. They open the door. So when they open the door, look, scare the shit out of them. And you see this tear coming down. And I say, why didn't you open the door? Why did you open the door? One experience like this, they're never going to open the door. Right? I get them an emotional experience to take them out of it, and we apply it with pilots. Tip, we apply it for airport security, thinking about those problems of what is the real challenge in this technological time and age. So it's not only to train pilots how to use these new technologies in the new aircraft, in the new computer. That's what we do, but that's the easy part of what we need to do, and it's going to be more and more in the future, is thinking how they're going to pay attention, how they're going to monitor, how they're going to stay on guard. The same in healthcare. I do a lot of work in healthcare, and more technology and monitoring patients in ICU, compliance, health and safety. In every domain you teach, as technology comes in, it's not about using technology to be brain friendly in the delivery, but what is the user, what is the workplace changing in terms of the human person and the things they need to do. And of course, it's also with not experts, right? Technology is affecting the attention. All the students who come to the university and people we train, they all have a bit of attentional deficit disorder, right? They can read something, if it's 45, 150, or whatever in Twitter. After that, the attention span is gone. That's not only a problem in your teaching, that you want to have short bites and all that stuff, brain friendly, we all know that, and that's great. But when they go back to the workplace, and they need to look at the monitor for hours to look for a bomb, then it's a problem for their brain, because their brain is lazy. All the brains are lazy because of the technology. And this is really critical for us to think of what we're going to teach. We need to think beyond how to use technology, but what we need to use. As I said earlier, technology is great, wonderful, and gives us a lot of new options, but also makes us more stupid in the sense that I explained today. And regardless if we agree or disagree, if it makes us more stupid, there's no question, I don't think anyone can say, that the new technology, as it comes out, and the cognitive technology is an evolutionary force. It changes how we think, how we work, how we communicate, human nature, as I said. And the bottom line, we must understand technology, how it impacts us in the brain, and adapt not only how we use technology to deliver training and learning, but what we actually teach. What are the new challenges as the brain adapts to new technologies? So let us think, and this is the title of today, what technology is doing to our brain and what that means. Thank you very much.
was interested, Itiel, have you done any work into attention? So people often say people's attention spans are getting shorter. Is there evidence for that? Is it actually a thing?
Yes, a lot of evidence for that. Attention, digit span, memory capacity, and the general phenomena is going down as we use those systems less and less in the brain. But as we use them less, other things we do get better. It's always a cognitive trade-off. So even though I try to provoke and say we're getting more stupid, as certain abilities go down, other abilities go up. So there are new things that we can do that we couldn't. So we're adapting, so it's not negative against technology, but understanding what abilities decline, what abilities get better, and how to change the training, not only the delivery, but understanding the demands of a future workplace and what they need to do, and the new cognitive technological brain, and in terms of what we want to teach.
Hi, thank you very much for that. I was just wondering how you feel about technology damaging relationships within the workplace in terms of, do we even need to talk to each other anymore?
Technology affecting relationships in the workplace and out of the workplace. It's a new ballgame. It changes everything in how it's done, and it's a very big problem. And I don't think anybody's really been thinking about it, and also technology and the law and privacy and a lot of stuff. But technology changed very, very, very quickly, and the UK government had asked me, and I said we need to come up with principles, because by the time you figure out the implication of the technology and even change the law, there's a new technology. Technology is changing much faster than the legislation and society. So how are relationships changing at the workplace because of technology, and what you use in technology, and how you manage technology. Even a simple example, that what we do, what I do all day, I don't work, I respond to emails all day. That's what I do, basically. I wake up real early to do my emails before I start my day, and it's the end of the day, I'm still just responding to emergency emails, yes, a high priority. So some workplaces don't allow email a few days a week, or you're allowed to send X numbers of email in a week. When you fill a quota, you're not allowed to try to balance that issue. So all of these are huge questions. From my perspective, is an elephant in the room. People don't understand how much we're intertwined with technology. I dare any one of you, without saying in advance, not to have your iPhone or the computer for 1 day. 1 day, without, the world collapses, right? We're so intertwined, and technology is changing so quickly. My kids make fun of me. What, in the olden days, you had to remember phone numbers? You had to open an encyclopedia in a paper or a dictionary? All I can say, and I do say to my kids, your kids will make fun of you. What? You had a keyboard and you typed letter by letter like an idiot, This is the way things are. And we just need to think, if it's learning and technology, and this is the next step I'm trying to push, not only being brain friendly and delivery, but thinking what skills, what abilities we need in the future workplace that we need to train people, and what's their brain and what their relationship or whatever it is, and how technology impacts. It's a huge topic, and today we're taking the first step, and I kind of went very quickly and pushed everyone, including myself, in the deep water. So I have many answers, but for every answer I have with 20 questions, I have no idea what to do, but I know we need to start thinking about that.
Thank you. You said that there are some things that technology can't take over from us. So what does your research say about emotional intelligence in the workplace and its role versus the technology?
So this is not a scientific fact, it's an opinion and a huge debate about artificial intelligence. And my belief, emotional belief, I think based in science, but these big good scientists who disagree with me, all the people saying AI will take over people don't understand the human brain. They're very naive about the power of the human mind. There are things that we're very weak at, but the human mind is so dynamic and so flexible that artificial intelligence, I don't want to say never, but not for a long time, I think never, but I be careful, not for a long time is going to replace human. The basic architecture of the brain and the computer is totally different, and AI solves things very quickly by brute force, versus the brain works in totally different architecture and totally different information processing schema, so the computers can beat us a long time ago in the quantity of how they process information. But the quality, part of it, emotional intelligence, but is much more in that hat. The computers are not able to do and will never, I shouldn't say never, and as far as I can think will be able to do, not be able to do what humans are doing. That's why the cooperation is very important, the collaboration, the distributed cognition, and places where we're not very good and we don't want to do it. Let the computers take off and technology of things that people are not good at and are boring, and they don't need us. But again, huge question, but that's my view. Thank you.
It seems like we as a species are getting smarter, but as an individual, getting stupid. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think people as individuals are getting more stupid, but humans as a society, their abilities are going up very, very much, yes. But as individuals, so society and humans and as a species, we're getting really, really smart. So smart that we'll annihilate ourselves, you know. But that's another issue. But definitely I'm talking about the individual, the brain capacity of the individual. But as a society, we're getting much, more intelligent, much more knowledgeable, much more able, more than we could ever dream.